Welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight for this forum for the candidates for trustee of Peralta Community College District, Area 1. I'm Helen Hutchison with the League of Women Voters of Oakland, and we're happy to bring you this candidate forum tonight. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. The League does not support or endorse candidates or parties. The advocacy arm of the League may take positions on issues such as ballot measures. This forum is being presented by the Voter Service and Education arm of the League, which does not take positions or advocate for candidates or policies. I'd like to remind everyone that the candidates have both agreed to participate under the guidelines set for this forum. Campaign literature or other forms of campaigning such as buttons and t-shirts and signs should not be displayed in this virtual forum in order to maintain neutrality. We're recording tonight's forum and broadcasting, then it will be broadcast later on KTOP, which is on Comcast Oakland Cable 10 and UVerse Channel 99. The session will be available on the League's YouTube channel, and you can find links on our website, lwvoakland.org, or through votersedge.org. You can live tweet us at LWV_Oakland. There are two candidates running for Peralta Community College trustee for Area 1. They are Jeff Heyman and Bill Withrow. Let's go over a few of the ground rules. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening remarks. The order was determined in advance by the League in a random draw. The timekeeper, who is visible only to the candidates and me, will signal candidates with an indication of the time left by green, yellow, or red tile icons. The order of answering questions will be alternating, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Again, the timekeeper will signal candidates. There will be no separate rebuttals. However, the candidates may choose to use some of or all of their 1.5 minutes to rebut responses given by the other candidate. Some questions were submitted in advance, and we'll start with those. Attendees tonight can use the Q&A icon to submit questions. The public chat is not available. All questions will be screened to avoid duplication and personal attacks. We'll start with some of the previously submitted questions and then move to those submitted in the evening. Candidates do not have to use all of the time allotted in any of these cases, and that may allow us to get to more questions. Following all of the questions, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. So now let's get started with the 2-minute opening statements. Mr. Heyman, you're first.
Well, thank you very much, Helen, and I want to thank Pat and Jody and all the members of the League. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity. I think all of us are really hold the League in high regard for what you do to inform the voters. So thank you very much. I want to start out by saying, both Bill and I are going to have differences of opinion on policy and on some other things, but you know what? Both of us love the Peralta colleges. Both of us care deeply about our students, the faculty, teachers, staff. We wouldn't be here if we didn't care about this gem that we have, the community colleges, the 4 Peralta colleges in our area. I mean, both Bill and I spent the better part of 2 decades devoting our careers and time to the Peralta colleges, so we care very deeply. So this isn't about somebody who doesn't care and somebody who does care. We both care, and I just wanted to say that to begin with. I believe this election, however, is about leadership in the future of the colleges. I worked for the Peralta Community College District for more than 18 years. I have more experience than anyone on the board currently or anyone in administration currently. I was on the ground, on the front lines, helping students. I worked in enrollment management, going out there doing enrollment plans. I was out there on the front lines at college days, at high school fairs. I worked with admissions and records folks. I ran a department of 15 folks, a very diverse department. And I taught in the classroom at Laney College. I know what our students need. So that's the reason I'm running. And some of the things that I am looking forward to doing, if elected, are strengthening our enrollment. We've got to make access easier for students, not harder. I also want to increase access for students that are normally at the college. They have a hard time getting in. We have to do that. So I have a number of other things that I want to do in the future, and I'll talk about that during this debate. So again, thank you so much. Very honored to be here.
So, Mr. Withrow, your opening statement?
The Peralta colleges, Alameda, Laney, Merritt, and Berkeley. 50,000 students, 1,800 faculty and staff, 132 buildings, and 2.25 million square feet. 35,700 students on campus, 16,300 in distance education. 37% of our students are enrolled in career technical education courses. 35% expect to transfer. 28% are enrolled for continuing education. 3,736 high school students are dual enrolled. 7,800 students taking non-credit courses. Over 15% of our students already have a bachelor's degree or higher. Some have a doctorate. 75% of our students work. Our students identify as Asian, 26%, Black, 21%, Hispanic, 32%, white, 20%. Age profile, 1% of our students are less than 16. 16 to 18, 15%. 19 to 24, 35%. 25 to 29, 15%. 30 to 34, 10%. 35 to 54, 16%. 55 to 64, 4%. And over 65, 3%. It's estimated that approximately 10% of our students are homeless. Our service area is composed of Oakland, Alameda, Berkeley, Piedmont, Albany, and Emeryville, about 650,000 residents. We're a political element under the state and not regional or local bodies. We have a very sizable number of international students, less now than we did 4 years ago. We have a governing board of 7 elected trustees and 2 student trustees. We have an extensive background. I have an extensive background in leadership and management roles in both the private and public sector. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So now let's start with our prepared questions. And the first question is going to go to Mr. Withrow. Mr. Withrow, how do you describe effective board management, and what is your role as a trustee in contributing to effective oversight of the district?
Effective management, and that's a very good question, by the way, because just an awful lot of people don't understand it. We have 7 voting trustees, and 4 or more determine what happens. If you, even though you vote against something, you still conform. That's the way you do it. Individual board members don't have any authority whatsoever, none, 0. The board does determine policy, the what, if you will, but individual trustees do not. If we, in monitoring what's going on, we see something that doesn't look like it's in sync, doesn't look like it's working, isn't in conformance with policy, we bring in an outside element. And normally that is like we did recently for the financial area, FCMAT, which is the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team at the state body, created back in 1991. We brought them in to take a look at it and say, you know, what's going on? What should we do? What should we change? And we listen to them. We take a document down. We enforce it like we did with the FCMAT. We have an agency called CBT, the Collaborative Brain Trust. We work with them and have since 2007.
Thank you. Mr. Heyman?
Okay, can you just repeat the first part of the question? I want to make sure I got it.
Sure. How do you describe effective board management, and what is your role as a trustee in contributing an effective oversight of the district?
Okay, great. I love that question because that really goes to the heart of why I'm running. You know, the board really needs to be reformed. There have been problems more recently than in the past and they're getting worse, frankly. And I have 3 R's that I'm running on. So that's reform, respect, and responsibility. And this goes to the core of what the trustees should do in managing the board collectively. Bill's absolutely right. There's 7 trustees. There's 2 student trustees. No one trustee has a say, but together they need to have respect for each other, which hasn't happened. Some of the board meetings are very difficult to watch, and people are uncivil. There needs to be, reform. We need to have fiscal oversight, which starts at the board. The board only has a couple of things that it does. And unfortunately, I don't feel that the board has done those things very well. One of them is set policy. The board doesn't even follow its policy sometimes. So we have to set effective policy and we have to follow it. That's how I would deal with board management. We have to reform the board to make sure that it is responsible financially. That hasn't happened. Tens of millions of dollars have been wasted by the spending of this board. Bill mentioned Collaborative Brain Trust. That's a consultant. Okay, we don't need consultants. And lastly, I want to say this. We really need to make sure that we hire a good chancellor. The board has 1 employee, and that is a chancellor. That's it. The board doesn't micromanage people. They hire a chancellor. And unfortunately, recently, the last couple of chancellor hires have not been very good.
Thanks. Well, that feeds right into the next question. And this one will go to you first, Mr. Heyman. What qualities will you look for in a permanent chancellor? How will you influence board changes so that a chancellor will remain with the district for more than 1 year?
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, that's a great one because that is exactly what I'm running. There's been way too much management turnover at the district. When I started back, 18, 19, 20 years ago now, it was stable. We had folks who were there for many years who knew the district, had institutional memory. It wasn't a revolving door like it is now. I go in there, I hardly know anybody. I know the staff and I know the teachers, but the administrators, I don't know. And what we have to look for in a chancellor is someone that really can work with the board. The board has to not be fighting with the chancellor constantly, which has happened in the last few times, as you noted. So I think what we're looking for in a chancellor is someone that, 1, understands the California community colleges. It's a different animal than other colleges and university systems in other states. So hiring out of state isn't always great. One of the challenges the board really does face is there is a shortage of qualified people at that level. That's just a thing that's happened in the state. So we got to be really careful that we pick the right person. And one of the things that is important for me anyway, is we need somebody that understands the classroom. I mean, that's what we do at the colleges. We teach, students learn. If a chancellor doesn't come from a background of teaching and learning, I think there's problems. So I would really want to look for somebody that has that kind of academic background and fiscal wherewithal so they understand one of the most complicated budgets in higher education. Those would be the qualities I'd look for.
Thank you. Mr. Withrow?
I concur with Mr. Heyman that that's a good question. First of all, we have a tremendous turnover of CEOs and executives throughout the state of California, the California community colleges. This is something that University of California, Davis has a focus on and has for the last 3 years to try and analyze and determine why CEOs turn over about every 2 years throughout the state. And what do I look for in a character? A leader, somebody who can communicate and understands when they set a policy and what they set a procedure, that they are accountable. They understand that, but they communicate as a leader throughout the organization to determine and to set and focus a methodology to carry out our mission. And there are people out there, there's no question, but they are short supply. There's no question about that. And we're in the process now of looking for a chancellor, but we're making it nationwide. We're not looking just in the state of California. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so this next question will go first to you, Mr. Withrow. A report was issued in 2019 by the FCMAT, Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, and it assessed the district's risk for fiscal insolvency. The results were that the district is at high risk. What is the current status to the recommendations, and how will the report be used to continually guide the district?
So number one, FCMAT was brought in by the board. FCMAT was brought in by the board. They didn't come in at the state's encouragement, whatever. That's number one. Number two, FCMAT did put out a very complete document, set of recommendations. And the last time I checked, we were in excess of 96% that we have completed totally all of the recommendations and put into place what they were looking for. I have a lot of respect for that group. I thought their recommendations were very pertinent. I thought they, not only pertinent, but they were not just a single fix this, but it was something that they look at from the standpoint of carrying over for a number of years and setting the organization. But again, we have implemented over 96%, that last time I checked, maybe 100% right now. But anyway, over 96% of everything that they put into place. Good group. And by the way, on the board of directors, the State Chancellor for Community Colleges is one of the directors.
Thank you. Mr. Heyman?
Okay, well, I really appreciate that question because, you know, I mean, this is a reoccurring problem at Peralta. This isn't something new. As I think many of you know, I became so concerned with the financial situation at Peralta that I filed a whistleblower complaint. Now, you know, we can bicker about what the findings were by a so-called independent agency or not, but here's the point. I felt vindicated when FCMAT came in and found a lot of the exact same findings that I had in my whistleblower complaint. And not only that, sadly, the departing chancellor after 9 months, in her letter, she had a list that mirrored a lot of the things in my whistleblower complaint from 2 years previous. So this is a recurring problem at Peralta. And what we need to do, I think the finances are getting a little bit better. So I don't want to, you know, cast negative spin on everything here. I think they're getting a little bit better. But let me say something. Bill Withrow has been on the board for 16 years. During his watch, none of these things is his fault, but these things happened on his watch. FCMAT has been into the district twice. Financial Crisis Management Assistant Team has been called into the district by either district or someone else twice. Twice in that same period, the colleges have been put on probation, accreditation probation. And then finally, twice in that same period, not to mention enrollment drops because of all this, there's been 2 grand jury reports issued about problems with Peralta's board and the administration. Those are the kind of things we need to change.
Thank you. This next question goes to you first, Mr. Heyman. Do you support Prop 15? And what other suggestions do you have for securing additional funding and other resources needed for the Peralta district?
Great. Yes, and I do support Proposition 15 for sure. I mean, that's gonna help greatly. But you know what? The biggest revenue generator for any community college district in California is enrollment. Enrollment is key, and unfortunately, so this would be one thing that I would say we really need to build up. Now, there's problems with enrollment now during COVID, but there's also opportunities. But enrollment drops at Peralta, which is the single biggest reason that they've had financial problems, and this is pre-COVID, are because we aren't going out there and enrolling students. And let me tell you something. I look back, and this is the district's own numbers here, that over the last 10 years, and more particularly over the last 5 years, the district has lost 9,000 students. That's 3,107 full-time equivalent students, which equals about 9,000 students. That's $14.6 million. That's how much the district has lost in revenue. So we need to go back out there. We need to enroll people at a higher level, and that will do it. I mean, that is one of the biggest things we can do. The district pretty much defunded, to use that term, its marketing efforts starting about 5-6 years ago. They're doing a little bit now, but they're not enrolling at the rate that at other colleges, even neighboring districts are. There's a problem statewide, but that doesn't mean that we can't go out there and get more students in. $14 million lost in 10 years.
Mr. Withrow?
And getting back to Prop 15, yes, I support it. I not only support it now, I supported it 20 years ago as a mayor of the city of Alameda. I spoke out regularly on that particular area. Number one. Number two, I concur with Mr. Heyman on the enrollment. We need to definitely improve our enrollment. There's no question about that. Certain segments of our district we do pretty well at, others we don't. I've been a part of a standing group committee, if you will, with the Alameda Unified School District. And my reason for doing it and the whole focus behind it for the last 3 years was to try and determine what the students and the parents understood was available from the Peralta colleges. And there is a shortfall. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. I think that the dramatic increase in dual enrollment is going to help. I think it's going to help dramatically. We have to follow that up with broad-based communication, but at least we're going to have students that are attending the colleges, understand what they are, what is there, how they can participate and what they can gain. And students talk among themselves. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. So this next question will go first to you, Mr. Withrow. How will the district respond, or how should the district respond to the COVID-19 crisis and assist students and faculty? What is the plan for online classes this year?
Well, that also is obviously a very appropriate question. We have our faculty has done a tremendous job converting to virtual education. And it's easy to say, go do it virtually, but that's not easy. It's a very time-consuming, and it's not necessarily logically easy. On a lot of our courses, about 35% of our courses can't be done virtually. They have to be done in a lab kind of thing. But we have what we call a return to campus plan. It's the safe return of employees and students into workspaces and pre-designated fall lab classes. And in that plan, which is very extensive, it's about a 35-page document, we call for enhanced disinfection and cleaning, physical distancing and ventilation, expectations conveyed to all personnel so that people understand what's expected of them. Obviously, screening, required face coverings, testing, and we have an arrangement for free tests provided by Alameda County so that we're running on it, and training so that people understand what they're getting into, why they're there, and what they need to do.
Thank you. Mr. Heyman?
Yes. One thing, I did want to correct something that Bill said in the previous question about Proposition 15. He mentioned that he worked on it previously when he was mayor. Proposition 15 didn't exist back then. I believe he may have confused it with Proposition 13, but I'll let him explain that. But this is a new proposition, Proposition 15, to fund schools and communities. All right, on to COVID. So look, I'm not inside, so I can't tell you what the planning is. I can tell you what I would recommend be done. I do know that the district has purchased 9,000 Chromebooks, and they have handed out an undetermined number. I can't get anyone at the district to tell me exactly how many have been handed out. I know that they've bought 9,000. The best guess is probably about a third of those have been handed out. In some areas, the district, College of Alameda, for example, have converted parking areas so that people can drive up in their cars, use their Chromebooks. There's a hotspot there. I think that's an excellent idea. This isn't going away anytime soon. So we really have to make sure that we're on board and we provide teaching and learning virtually to as many students as we can. It is incredibly difficult for our faculty, as Bill said. That is entirely true. But one of the things, there's also opportunities here, because like we're doing now, there's a lot of folks that can actually get education easier if they're at home virtually. They don't have to come in. Not all the classes can be taught that way, that's right. But we have to do everything we can to make sure that they have the tools, they have the Chromebooks they need to continue their education.
Thank you. So now it's time for questions from the audience, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jody Nunez, who is going to ask those questions. Jody?
Okay, so the first question from the audience is, in June, the Peralta Board of Trustees voted to terminate their contract in January 2021 with the Alameda County Sheriff to provide security and camera monitoring at Peralta campuses. What are your plans on how Peralta navigates community safety issues going forward?
Who gets that one first, Jody?
I think you do.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I'm not on the inside, so I can't tell you exactly what the plan is that is laid down. I've seen some of the stuff in the board meeting and the minutes and watched the videos. But I can tell you one thing. And my day job is a communication analyst for the city of Lafayette, and we're dealing with policing issues there like so many communities are. I think one of the things that makes it really difficult at the Peralta colleges is people don't remember this, but that's why institutional memory is very, very important. But Peralta at one time had its own police force that it paid for, it trained, they were sworn officers, but it was run by the district. Unfortunately, an officer was killed. And the outcome of that very tragic incident was we found out that the training wasn't sufficient, the equipment wasn't sufficient, and that's when the district changed to the sheriff's office to provide police services. I think we need to look really carefully at what we're doing. It's popular to say, oh, let's just move to this. Well, we got to make sure that people are safe. We got to make sure that our police force is trained to deal with all the situations they're going to face in a sensitive manner, treat people equitably, make sure that they don't use force when it's unnecessary, and then also use other techniques to de-escalate situations. You don't always need to have a cop responding to every single thing. I think that's the most important thing that can happen. But I'm not sure, and again, I'd have to see what the district has been proposing that they're doing. I'm just not sure it's a good idea to forget about the sheriffs entirely.
Thank you.
Mr. Withrow?
Yeah, I agree with that in most respects. I have a lot of respect for the sheriff's deputies that we had at Peralta. I know there are problems in other segments of Alameda County with respect to the sheriffs, but I'm not a fan of stereotyping. We do have to make all of our colleges a safe haven. They have to be safe for the students. They have to be safe for the faculty. They have to be safe for the staff. And I do understand community policing. That's something that I was on a president's crime commission, as a matter of fact. And I'm a real proponent of community policing. And as opposed to paramilitary structure in the police force. I do understand that. And it could be that the style of uniform and the weapons being exposed were intimidating. But we do have to focus on safety. And it's the other side of it, unfortunately, the sheriffs are expensive. They're very expensive.
Okay, so starting with you, Mr. Withrow, question from the audience. As a trustee, if you see there is a bias and abuse of authority that occurs at the Peralta Community College District, how would you prevent this from happening? And basically, how would you address that?
Well, first of all, it's not up to an individual trustee to do that, involved in it. But I personally would bring it to the attention of the board as a whole and ensure that it was communicated that this sort of thing needed to cease and desist, and that we can't have that kind of behavior within the Peralta system. It's something that is I don't think running rampant. It's not apparent to me as a board member that we have a lot of problems along that line, but any and all that occur, we've got a cease and desist. It's a, we do have a, an internal auditor now, and that's one of the areas that they should be looking at and making sure that, and I want to emphasize this, some of these things may occur and not come to the attention of the board. And we need to make sure that there is a means of communicating and bring it to the attention of the board so that we can take appropriate action.
Thank you.
Mr. Heyman?
Yeah, just one clarification. This hypothetical about the bias, is that a bias on, of a board member or just generally somewhere in the district?
I think just my review of the question would be a general.
Okay, well, Bill's right. I mean, you know, it's not up to an individual trustee to actually, you know, to do something. However, like any form of abuse, you know, if there's physical abuse, sexual harassment, once you know about that, under law, you have a responsibility to report it. And the first thing I would do is so if you're made aware of it, you need to report that, because you could open the district up for all kinds of litigation if you don't. But here's the most important thing. We have pretty good policies at Peralta about this stuff. People don't always follow them, and sometimes they don't even know that they exist. So I would look very carefully at the situation, what the policy is, talk to the major unions if it has to do with a staff member or a faculty member. There are union contracts that lay out exactly the procedure to follow in addressing bias and other incidents. I think it's that simple. And honestly, that is really something that the board should direct the chancellor to follow up on and other staff as appropriate. But above all, you got to follow policy. You got to follow the labor contracts. That's what I would do. Jody, you're muted.
Sorry about that. One more audience question here. What would you do as a trustee to make the difference in the district to reduce the high turnover in staff and administration and to ensure that the hiring process is fair and equal to all employees?
Mr. Heyman first.
Oh boy, God, I love that one. You know what? I can't tell you how much really bad hiring practices I saw at Peralta. We had trustees involved in the hiring process, micromanaging. We had people not following policy, not following procedures at all. We had, and this is stuff I witnessed firsthand. This isn't hearsay. We had, you know, interims forever and acting people forever and people getting, you know, reappointed. That just has to stop. You got to follow the policy you have. And if the policy isn't sufficient, the board should change it. And you got to make the chancellor responsible. That's why hiring a good chancellor is important. Now, I worked under 6 chancellors during my time. I've seen what works. I've seen who's been effective, who hasn't. Some of our chancellors were there 7 years. There's no reason that they can't be again. Well, I think the high turnover is a couple of things. You know, Bill has said in a previous forum that it's the high cost of living here. Well, maybe, but you know what? A lot of administrators get pretty good salaries. Some of the vice chancellors are pushing over $200,000 a year. So I don't think it's that. What I think it is there is too much micromanaging, and a lot of the stuff that comes down from the board, that's why it's so important to reform the board, is political. And the last thing we need is politics getting mixed up in academia, and senior administrators and deans and even faculty members feeling caught between politics and their students. That has to stop.
Thank you.
Mr. Withrow.
Another thing I totally agree with, and my behavior will back it up. The board has no role whatsoever in hiring anybody other than a chancellor. The chancellor is the only employee of the board, period. There is no participation in terms of hiring anybody up and down the line within the structure. The chancellor is called upon to be accountable for the behavior of all employees in the organization. They need to be in control, not the board, not the board. This is something that is, it is prevalent on this board. But I think that anybody that knows anything about this board, they understand and have heard me publicly state, not just in closed session, but publicly state my opposition to board interference in the hiring or the administration or the firing, as the case may be, or terminating employees. They don't get into that. They don't get into that. They hold the chancellor. If a particular operation within the organization has employees that tend to be weak, it should be brought to the attention of the chancellor, not down to the line of the individual involved.
Okay, and this would be the last question. And it would be, I will start with you, Mr. Withrow. What programs would you initiate and complete to improve student outcomes at the Peralta Community Colleges?
You know, I like that question very much because of all of the things that have gone on and all of the things that we've brought in to look at. A lot of them have to do with fiscal. A lot of them have to do with the procedural, not necessarily the policies, but the procedural. But let me run some things by you. Student success. Overall, Peralta's student success is 91.2%. State composite average, 83.44. Basic skills, 93.1%. State composite, 77.35%. The degree applicable, 91. State composite, 83. Transferable, 91. State composite, 83. Vocational, 91. State composite, 85. Almost 86. Our student success is not only in those figures, but in interacting with the people at the University of California, Berkeley, for example. They have stated to me one-on-one that 8 out of 10 of our students are better prepared going into the upper division than the students that took their courses, lower division courses on campus. Our admittance to UC Berkeley is 60% coming out of College of Alameda, as opposed to 6% coming out of high schools. That speaks to the quality of our student success.
Thank you. Mr. Heyman?
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. This is where Bill and I are going to really differ on stuff. I don't know where he gets his numbers from because he's used some of those before, and I can't find them anywhere. I don't know. I don't know where he gets them. Bill, if you could tell us the source of that, maybe not now, let us know where you're getting that document because I don't see that reflected in stuff. Our students do a great job. I'm not going to ding our students. They do a great job, and so does the faculty. But let me tell you this. Okay, graduation rates for COA. This is from U.S. News and World Report, okay? Because I can't find numbers that match the State Chancellor's Office and what Peralta has on its website. So I went to a third party. This is the latest figures from U.S. News and World Report. And we've got to improve these figures. And what I'm proposing to do, and I'll tell you what they are in a second, but what I'm proposing to do is you got to get access, you got to get counseling, you got to get help for folks that need it in the classroom. But listen to these figures. So COA, graduation rate is 22%. The transfer rate, Bill just said it was, what did you say, Bill, like 60%? 13%, according to U.S. News and World Report. Chabot, a neighboring college, right, which is very close to College of Alameda, graduation rate, 35% compared to COA's 22%. Their transfer rate's about the same, 12%. DVC, the graduation rate is 46% compared to College of Alameda's 22%. Their transfer rate's very similar, 10%. San Francisco City College, which just came out of being taken over by the State Chancellor's Office, its graduation rate is 38%, again, compared to COA's 22%. And their transfer rate at City College is only 8%. So we do need to really improve those things, and that's something I committed to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's time now for closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. We're going to go in the reverse order of the opening statement. So Mr. Withrow, you're going to go first.
First of all, I'd like to state that I'm very proud to be associated with the Peralta colleges. They're not perfect, but I can tell you, having been involved, not only just in Peralta, but throughout the state of California and nationally, the organizations of community colleges throughout the country, that we're a quality institution. We're a quality institution. We do have a difficult role. Our population is such that it's more difficult. We're 75 to 80% of our students work. It's estimated that 10% of our students are homeless. Just an awful lot of our students come out of some very difficult situations. But when I, again, talk to people who know our graduates and talk to students who 5 years, 10 years, 15 years after they've come out of the College of Alameda, they talk in glowing terms. They talk in glowing terms about their experience.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heyman.
Yes, thank you. You know, I want to echo what Bill's saying. And people, who hasn't been touched by the Peralta colleges? What student hasn't had success? But we can make that better. Listen, I'm endorsed by the Peralta Federation of Teachers, all the teachers at Peralta. I'm endorsed by the staff of Peralta, SEIU 1021. I'm endorsed by the Alameda Labor Council. I'm endorsed by the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club. I'm also endorsed by 4 past presidents of College of Alameda, a host of former chancellors and presidents from other Peralta colleges. And I'm sorry we didn't have more time to get into some of the specifics. There's so much to talk about here, but I really appreciate you holding this forum. And I think I would refer people to my webpage, which is heymanforstudents.com, Heyman number 4, students.com. You'll see my whole platform there. You can see all my endorsements, what my plan is, and a bunch of really good pictures. So anyway, I hope I have your vote. And I thank the league for holding this forum tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Oakland, I want to thank both candidates for running for office and for participating this evening. I also want to thank the audience for attending and getting a chance to meet the candidates. For further information about upcoming forums, the candidates and ballot measures, please visit the League's website, lwvoakland.org or votersedge.org. There you're going to find information about candidates and ballot measures and links to other sources of information about the upcoming election. Members of the League of Women Voters do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. If you'd like to be involved with the men and women who are helping make democracy work, it's easy to join the League. We encourage you to visit our website at lwvoakland.org. Visit us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Look for the League's Easy Voter Guide for Oakland, inserted in the October 14th edition of the East Bay Express. The deadline to register to vote is October 19th. If you've moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register by October 19th. Online voter registration is available at the Secretary of State's website, sos.ca.gov. Remember to vote by mail or at a vote center, which will be open starting on October 31st for early voting. Please encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote. This forum is now concluded. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you. Good night. Night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Night.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.